check that. Just let me check. It's definitely recording everything we need. Music, camera, video settings, recording, speaker view. Cool. Brilliant. Pause, stop recording. Yeah, no, that's definitely recording. Brilliant. So welcome to Richard Nicholls from motivateyourself.co.uk onto the Fit Stop Pod. Richard is a psychotherapist, which I'll let him explain more of what that is because I get all the times confused. And he's agreed to come onto the podcast. So I'm really excited about this. Richard, I've been listening to Richard's podcast for probably about 2 years now. I recommend it to all my clients. And I'll be honest, I steal some of his stuff as well because it's just liquid gold or vocal gold. And he's agreed to come on today. So we're going to cover all things fitness, weight loss, mindset, things like that. I'm sure we're going to have a great chat. And I look forward to getting it all started. So welcome to the Fit Stop Pod, Richard.
Hello, Adam.
How are you?
I'm very well indeed.
Good.
Thanks very much for having me on.
My pleasure. Is it snowed up in, where are you in the middle?
I'm in North Warwickshire.
Right.
And today's okay. Yesterday was a bit an odd day, but it's not snowing today. It's bright, it's blue, it's a wonderful day to go out for a run. It's gorgeous.
Lucky you. I'm injured at the moment, so I can't run, but we've got white snow down here in Essex. So
wow.
Yeah, so it's quite a nice day to be doing this actually. So, as I mentioned, you're a psychotherapist. So do you want to just go into a little bit about what that means for whoever?
Yeah, psychotherapy is, there's this old joke. Somebody said to me a couple of years ago, and I thought, I'm going to remember this because this is funny. What's the difference between counselling and psychotherapy? And it's about £20 an hour. I thought, I like that. I'm going to be a psychotherapist, not a counsellor from now on. That's great. Counselling, everybody is familiar with the idea of counselling. It's a space where you can sit down and you can talk about your past, your worries about yourself, your worries about your future, and it's a place where you know that you're not going to be judged by anybody. And a counsellor will listen and reflect back things that you've said and help you feel understood and listened to. It's great. And it just pushes a little button in the brain that says, actually, I'm a decent person after all. I am capable of different things or better things or alternative ways of thinking and feeling. Psychotherapy takes it to an extra level, I guess, where you will do all those same sorts of things, but you may go a little bit deeper into people's foundations of what's built up their personality. So you're far more likely with psychotherapy to be talking about or they're more likely to be talking about their childhood, their relationship with their parents and things like that. And it goes back to really Freud and I guess his ideas that, and although he was a pioneer, one of the first to think that we're capable of change. And although a lot of his ideas they've not really stood the test of time, some stuff has, some stuff really, really has, and we still use elements of it today. Psychotherapy means healing the psyche, healing the soul, I guess, really. And it's a series of methods based on many different modalities. Psychotherapy isn't just a one thing. Within psychotherapy, you've got transactional analysis, you've got cognitive behavioral therapy, you've got hypnopsychotherapy. There's lots of these different modalities underneath psychotherapy. And most people nowadays are integrative. They take all these little theories and little aspects that they like and enjoy, and they will teach their clients about how the brain works. A counsellor probably won't go into much theory about neuroscience and how the brain works, whereas a psychotherapist probably would, or certainly could.
Right.
And I guess it's psychological education. That's where I see me stepping in anyway. It's about psychoeducation as well.
Psychoeducation of the particular patient, client? How do you refer to them? Patient?
Most people stop learning when they leave school.
Yeah.
And I think, no. And somebody said to me a couple of years ago, we were talking about something to do with the American Civil War, I think it was. And she said, I don't really know much about it. Didn't do that at school. And we were all in our 30s. And I went, what's school got to do with it? You don't stop learning when you leave school. Pick up a book, read, see the world, learn stuff, read a book, watch a play,
It's crazy, isn't it?
Get some education.
As you know, I'm an actor, and I did all of drama school and did all of that kind of art and work and all that, learning about the history and Shakespeare and all the rest of it. And you name it, like classical background, did it, done, job done. And then you leave drama school and you try and keep up with it. It's so much harder to keep up with it and stuff. And then I got a day job and everything else. And then I was like, this is really frustrating me. I ran a business and that's the main reason. I was like, I want to do like something completely different. I want to go and do something that I think I'll enjoy. But more than anything else, I just feel like I haven't learned anything in about 5 years. So I went and did a personal training course, and I just it was an oddly refreshing feeling, taking exams, learning about the body, having to go to school 2 days a week, like for my course and stuff. And you see it in the workplace quite a lot. Just people who only know their job and that's about it. And their field of vision gets narrower and narrower and narrower and narrower. It's really quite sad to see. So I suppose that relating is constant education is important for the cognitive function of the brain.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in a lucky position, I guess, really, because I work in clinics, and every clinic has got a different style to it. So I've got one clinic that I work at in Tamworth in Staffordshire, which is an alternative therapy centre. And they'll do reflexology and do foot massage, and they'll talk about energy and chi and all these different things
like
that
Reiki
are
and stuff. Yeah.
completely ridiculed in the past and don't fully understand. So because I don't fully understand, I can't get an opinion. And I'm not going to fall into well, that's a load of rubbish because I don't understand it.
No.
Because I remember thinking the same thing about things that I do now. I remember thinking that about hypnosis, and I'm a massive fan of hypnosis.
Yeah.
Now I understand it, so I can't belittle it anymore and go, oh, that's a load of placebo nonsense. No, actually, no, the placebo effect isn't that nonsense. Actually, that's really quite useful. We can utilise that. And we'll talk about that in a bit if you like. But one of my other clinics, it's a medical place. It's got osteopaths in there, it's got chiropodists, things like that. And I guess so in that clinic in Leicestershire, in Hinckley, I've been working there for 10, 12 years, something like that. And I'm learning more about the body. I'm learning more about how the muscles in the back, those long erector spinous muscles, how they connect into the lower back, and why people will come to me sometimes with a headache. And they go, I've got these terrible stress headaches. And I go, okay, now, 15 years ago, what I'd do is talk about just relaxation in general. Learn to relax, blah, 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 blah. I'll teach you some techniques. But now I understand a little bit more about why those headaches are where they are. Because those muscles, probably sometimes in their bum, it's those glutes, it's those big, thick muscles, those biggest muscles in the human body. They're tight. And all the other muscles are pulling tighter. And the muscles in the neck get tight and they're thin and they start to hurt and they go all the way over the top and over the eyebrows. And that's where my clients are holding their head here. And they go, I've got this terrible headache when I get stressed. And go, yeah, you're holding your body too tightly. And you can sometimes see it in their muscles. They're holding, they just need to relax and let go. And it's one thing for me to say, you need to relax. But actually, they need to understand a bit more about their body to go, oh yeah, I do hold those muscles really tightly. Yeah. And I do this with my stomach muscles. And I do this with my arms. I do need to relax. And once they can see that, then it's much easier for them to listen when I go, and relax.
Yeah, of course. I find that, like, I work with quite a few people who have bad backs, like they've, slip discs or, herniated spines or whatever it might be. And I mean, I'm no expert in the field of correcting back problems. And obviously there's a medical side of that and stuff like that. But it is funny how when we just start working on those glutes and we start working on the latissimus dorsi and those big back muscles that you're speaking about, suddenly like their triggers for back pain disappear, or they feel a lot less like they have less relapses and stuff. Like someone will come to me they'll get real severe back pain. They can't move like once a month, once every 2 weeks, easy. And then we just start building up those muscles, working on a bit of posture and stuff like that. And which is where the actor training comes in quite well. And suddenly, they know that now a twinge is just a twinge. It's nothing worse than that. And it's such a release for them and such a wonderful feeling. And educating them on that side of it's great. And then how it interacts with everything else like you do, I can imagine it's quite a good package. Um,
The thing is, we all have a body. We carry it around from the moment we're born to the moment we die. We've all got one. But how much are we actually taught about it?
yeah, not a lot.
They do a little bit of PE at school and a little bit of biology. But to me, if this is something I'm carrying around for my entire life, I need more than just a few handfuls of sessions in a week at school, which then you just push to one side because that's not a real lesson anyway. What's the point in biology unless you're not going to be a doctor? What? You have a body. You're carrying it around.
Enjoy it. It's yours.
Learn about it.
We there's a phrase I like to carry around, and it's you know, if you mess up your body, where else are you going to live?
Wow.
And that's like, it just sums it up perfectly. You know, you've got one of these, and that's it. You can't get another one. It is what it is. So let's treat it with respect. Let's learn as much about it as we possibly can, and let's take that forward into the world. So I know you, speaking of which, moves us quite nicely into, I know you do a lot of fat loss and weight loss work with clients and things like that. So how does psychotherapy interact with controlling weight gain? I imagine there's elements of depression in there. There's elements of habitual behavior and stuff like that. So can we just explore that a little bit?
Yeah, it's multifaceted. It really is, because there is the emotional side of eating, because if our brain isn't getting satisfied in certain areas for whatever reason, then we're not happy with our job, our relationship, our life, whatever, our brain does poke us towards some other way of getting satisfaction. And because of natural selection or evolution, or whichever way we want to look at it, high calorie food pushes a big button in the brain that says we're safe, we're going to be okay. The first human that stumbled across the berry bush, and these berries were really sweet. Oh my God, this is amazing. Quick, get as many of these as possible. I've never seen this before. Suddenly all that burst of calories means that they can live in their cave for a little bit longer, so then it's not quite so dangerous. Now this is 70,000 years ago, probably longer ago than that, to be fair, probably 250,000 years ago. Maybe even longer ago than that. We fell out the trees 6 million years ago, and half of us went, oh, this ground seems like a nice place to be. And the other half went, I'm stopping up the trees. And they became monkeys and we became humans. And we got straight backs because we had to look over the grass.
Yeah.
But also, as we started to look over the grass 6 million years ago and got straight backs, we got more nervous. And we began to hone that fear response, the fight or flight response. And that has a huge impact on blood sugar. We know that even a little bit of stress, even just putting it, the experiments they do, they get people to put their hand in a bucket of, a bit of icy cold water, and then they see what happens with their blood sugar and stuff like that. And it makes a massive difference. The energy that their body is storing suddenly gets spurted into all that sugar gets spurted into the blood. And in fact, it doesn't get into the muscles because we've got to fight or flight. It just ends up turning into fat. But we don't need much stress to have such a huge impact on our desire for high-calorie food. I was talking to a guy who did a PhD on it a couple of months ago. I was chatting. Where was he from? His name was Anthony Salerno. Great guy. And he did this amazing experiment to test just how little anxiety people needed to be poked with in order to start eating extra calories. What he did, he set up a stall which was supposedly a taste test of a new version of the M&M chocolate sweet. Half of the people were told it was a low-calorie version, and half of the people were told it was a luxury high-calorie version. As it turns out, they were just M&Ms, nothing special at all. But also, those people were each one of those was split into two groups as well. Because what they were doing was just giving everybody the same amount. They'd weigh these M&Ms into a little cup. Everybody got the same amount. And then they were just told, take as many as you want. And then they weighed the cup when it came back to see how many they'd had. Behind the researcher handing them the cup was a poster.
Right.
It was only a few feet away. It was only about that big. It was only sort of an A3 size, and it just had sentences on.
Yeah.
And the sentences were nothing horrific. They might have the word adversity in the sentence, and then there were other sentences where there was a different word, and it was very neutral. just to see if that word being on a poster would have an influence on how many M&Ms they took. And it had a massive influence. Just a poster that talked a little bit about, bad times are coming, the world's a bit doom and gloom. Yeah. All that was just one little poster. And they doubled the amount of M&Ms they would have. They had twice as many calories.
My jaw literally just hit the floor. I mean, I know you can't see that on the podcast, but that's incredible. Especially when you consider like how easy the access is in this day and age to bad news or just information.
Yeah.
And you can't control the information you see, like on Facebook or Twitter or even BBC News, Sky News, whatever it might be. Like it's, I mean, I've stopped reading newspapers. I stopped about 18 months ago, and I'm just 100% happier for it. You know, well, maybe not 100% happier, but I don't feel the need to read one or see one on my commute into London or wherever I might be about the day. And I used to it's funny because I used to put quite a big onus on keeping up with current affairs, knowing what's going on in the world. It's the kind of guy who read a newspaper and would like to talk about it and things like that. I thought it made me a modern human being almost, you know, I was up to date. But now when you think about it, like the subliminal messages in there that will be feeding through to you and making you worry about, especially these days with Trump and Brexit and all these bad news stories constantly. And before that, it was terrorism, wasn't it, and stuff. And so you think it clearly does, has a massive effect on the way we choose our food.
It does. It really, really does. Because, like you say, bad news is everywhere. Bad news sells. If the front page of a newspaper isn't going to be, isn't the world a wonderful place? Nothing bad happened today. No one's going to buy that.
No, it's like when people focus on a plane crash, it's like, yeah, but how many planes from that airport took off and survived? It was absolutely fine. You're talking about 1 in 300 almost, you know.
If you look at the crime rates in the UK, and you ask most people, you know, is the country a more dangerous place now, or is it a safer place? Pretty much everybody will go, oh, it's a more dangerous place. And any thoughts, you know, 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when you'd think about the future, you'd think about the year 2000, you think about Blade Runner and you jump into the future. It's a dark, scary place, the future. And yet, every year on year on year, with very few exceptions, there was a slight bump last year, but it was just a slight bump. It's safer. There is less crime. There is less murder. There is less sexual assault. There is less of everything. And yet most people genuinely will say, oh, it's not like it was in the old days.
Yeah.
The old days? What do you mean the old days? The old days when all the stories that are coming out now happened.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Good old days. It's a safer place. And that's not just from the police statistics. That's from the Crime Survey of England and Wales, who are totally independent. But the thing is, if you ask somebody about their perception of crime, their perception is that it's gone up. If you ask people about their experiences of crime, those experiences have gone down. How can somebody have less of an experience, but still have a perception of the opposite? Where's that information coming from? And that's the news. That's the media. That's gossip. That's all the negative stuff.
It's like if you know you have a bad experience in a restaurant, you're more likely to tell 10 people, and if you have a good one, you're likely to tell 2, aren't you? We feel more obliged to tell people about bad things because I think in some way we feel like we're protecting them from it by informing them on it.
Exactly. We think it keeps them safe, and we think that making that negative aspect of the world our priority keeps us safe. If I can be more aware of where the saber-toothed tiger is, I'm less likely to get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. And that's probably great for natural selection and evolution, but actually here in the 21st century, sitting in the UK, we don't need so much fear. We really, really don't.
And all this fear is adding to poor health.
It is, yeah. There's a strong correlation with stress and pretty much anything, any heart disease, even things like cancer. Because if our body is having to deal with adrenaline and cortisol, then our immune system immediately drops. We have far less of an ability to cope with a virus that's kicking around, even if it's just a cold, let alone flu. because our body is already under stress, it's already under pressure, and it can't cope with anything extra that gets thrown in. But yeah, emotional well-being is absolutely paramount. It really is.
Oh, no, golly, well, lots to think about there. I feel like my brain's just gone bang. So much knowledge and stuff to consider, and it's just scary, the effect that stuff that's so out of our control can have on our mental well-being and now our physical well-being as well.
Yeah, but it's worth recognizing that it's not what happens to us or what we experience that has this effect. It's how we react to that. And once we've got that little bit of education that says, oh, this newspaper just wants my money. Oh, this news. You probably, Newsround is still on. You were probably, when you were a kid, did you watch Newsround?
Newsround, yeah, on CBBC.
On BBC, yeah. When I was a kid, it was John Craven's Newsround. And
when I was a kid, was it Otis? No,
was it?
I was a bit older when it was Otis. I'm not sure. Anyway, carry on.
I like to pretend I'm 21. I'm not.
Yes, well, so do I. I mean, it was my birthday on Monday. I'm definitely not 21 anymore.
Well, in all those, in fact, not even just on the children's news programs, even on the adult news programs, there'd be a little, and on a lighter note at the end. There'd be all this doom and gloom, and then, and on a lighter note, Chi-Chi the panda at London Zoo is pregnant. Blah-de-blah-de-blah-de-blah. Isn't the world a lovely place? Here's a dog on a skateboard. And we don't get that anymore. At the end of our news bulletins, we get ba-boom.
Yeah.
Those bad things again, ba-boom. How many times? Do you use the BBC website at all?
The only thing I really flick onto it for is generally just sport, if I need to find out what's going on in the world of sport. But that's it, really.
It's very, very common most days that on the BBC website and most websites, there'd be a little black bar that appears at the bottom that says breaking news. You go, God, what's happened? Breaking news, something ordinary is going on. Breaking news, Theresa May exists. Okay, this isn't breaking news. And this happens even on the news. It's 24-hour news on the telly.
I know.
The news used to be on like 3 times a day. Now it's on 24 hours. They've got to fill it with something.
I do know the sound that you get on the notification for the BBC News is quite a scary noise. I remember I used to have it on when I was in the world of trying to keep up with current affairs, and I do remember going, "Oh God, there's that noise. That means something major has happened, like terrorist attack, major incident, something like that." And it just be the Prime Minister has landed in London, and I'd be like, "How's that? How can you push that to my phone as something scary?" And I could significantly feel my heart rate go up whenever I heard that noise. So I was like, hey, that needs to go. So I cut it out, stopped it, end of. But I know some people, like some of my friends who work in the city, literally they have that, Sky News, anything going on, ABC News, anything American if they can, just constantly being pushed to the phone with the noise. And again, it's just information that you just don't need to know.
And also, as well as the sort of changes in our blood sugar when that happens, that then has an effect upon our muscle to fat ratio, there's also the fact that any sort of emotional stress takes willpower to hold ourselves back from running.
Yeah.
Because we're programmed that if we start to get a feeling that we don't like, this fight or flight response kicks in, we're primed to either fight or flee. And of course we don't. There's nothing to run away from and there's nothing to fight. So we just sort of carry on with our day. But there's a little bit of our brain that had to use a bit of willpower to not scream. Later on in the day, then we look at our watch and we go, okay, I've got an hour and a half before I need to do anything, but actually I need to do this, and I was going to go for a jog, and I was going to do that. The jog then gets put down the bottom of the list because that's not a priority. Whereas I feel as if I really need to do this. I really need to make sure that the house is clean or tidy or whatever, but we change our priorities. And actually exercise is one of the, it ticks a really good box for mental health for lots of different
I was going to ask you about that. Exercise on the brain. I mean, I've seen the diagrams and stuff. I went to a wonderful thing in Berlin called it's like the Body Museum or something. And they had 2 stock pictures of a brain activity after exercise and a brain activity without exercise. And it goes without saying that with exercise, the brain was full of color. It was full of, work and all the good stuff and everything else. And the brain without exercise was just like bland, black and white sort of photo. So exercise plays a big aspect in mental health and just helping yourself deal with things like fat loss and stuff.
And for lots of different reasons. There is a change in the brain when we're using our body. when our heart is pumping for all the right reasons, then there is a genuine little burst of, oh, that feels good, that goes on in the brain. But there's also the fact that you're getting out there and you're seeing the world. We know that sitting inside in a dark room makes us feel worse. It makes us feel more lonely, makes us more isolated. And although somebody with mental health issues might think, no, I'm safer in here. If I hide away from everybody, then I can't be judged by people. So I'm going to be safer here. So surely this is going to be better for me. See, it turns out, no. Getting out there and going for a run, even if all you're doing is just nodding at somebody as you run past them. Morning, morning. There's an interaction. And it's that interaction, that slight interaction, even if you don't say anything, just knowing that there are people out there, that you're not alone in this world, it tells the brain that you're safe. We've only been living in the UK for, a few thousand years, really, in the big scheme of things, 20, 30,000 years, maybe at most. No, actually, what do I know? That's not my bag. I'm making all those numbers up. I think
that's all right. I do that all the time.
Definitely bones found on Dogger Bank in between Britain and France, which go back many thousands of years. So we've been kicking around for a while, but we've never had very many children. Not really. So the population of the world has only gone up lately. It's only the last few hundred years, really, where we went, whoop, because of some genetic mutations that meant we can drink milk and stuff like that. So going back a long way, we're a very, very small community. And the only way to be safe is to rely on other people. We needed a society. That's what drove us out of Africa. The fact that we can go together as a tribe. One person wandering through the Sahara Desert as it starts to turn tropical and goes, oh, we can move. He ain't going to go on his own. If he does, he's going to die. You can't cope on your own. You've only got to get a splinter. You need to sit down for a bit. Now, we need people around us. And all these years later, our brain still recognises that if there's people around us, then we are safer. So getting out there and going for a run and just seeing that there's other people in this world, and also it helps us to recognise that we're not being judged. The first time I went for a run, when I was younger, I did feel like a bit of an idiot because I'd never done it before. Yeah,
I'm training for the marathon, and I mean I'm a semi-pro referee, so I do running, but to find the courage to actually just put on my running leggings, my shorts. I didn't really know what to do my first street run. And yeah, it's got easier doing it every time I do it. But those first few times I put it off for a while because I was just like, I'm not sure how you do it, what you're meant to do. You just what if I get lost, or what if I don't know what way to go, or I'm literally just going out with a debit card, my key, and that's it, and my phone on my arm and my headphones. I don't have my stuff with me. I need my stuff because I always carry my laptop with me, and I was like, what's going on? And it was quite an intimidating experience.
And yet, from the outside world, all you are is just a bloke going for a run.
Just a runner. Yeah, no one bats an eyelid.
You live in your body. You live in your head. You're there all the time. You know what it usually is doing. I'll tell you this. You probably noticed, but over the last few years, I've lost my hair. I'm not the hairiest bloke. Now the rest of me is like an ape gone wonky, but I've got no hair on my head. So about 8 years ago, something like that, I decided one winter's day to buy a hat. And me and my wife and my son, we were just out shopping, and I saw this hat in TK Maxx or something like that for a couple of quid, and I thought, this could solve a few problems. I thought, well, I've got to that age now, I'll buy this hat. It was only a £5. So I bought this hat and I put it on, and I thought, I've never worn a hat before. I bet I look weird. So I ripped the tag off with my teeth and I put the hat on and walk out the shop. And as I walk out, I think everybody must be looking at me.
Yeah.
So I've never worn a hat before.
Yeah.
Of course nobody's looking at me. It's me that's looking at me. I'm the one that's judging me because I know that I look different from how I did when I walked into the shop. No one else knows.
No, or cares.
But I felt different just because I was wearing a hat. I felt like the centre of attention. And I am the only person who I was the centre of my own attention. It was me that was thinking about me, not everybody else. And that's how, that's quite normal to go through that process. but actually it can damage our self-esteem a little bit, because I feel like everybody's looking at me, everybody's judging me. And if we can learn that that's just what the brain does, don't worry about it, we can push it to one side and go, oh, I get it, it's because I'm wearing a hat. Oh.
Yeah.
And the next time we wear it, we know we're not really the centre of attention, because we're not judging everybody else or thinking about everybody else, so they're not thinking about us. But if we keep that feeling in that, but I feel that everybody's looking at me. Okay, it's just a feeling, don't worry about it, move on.
Yeah.
Sounds a bit easier said than done, but once you understand the basics, it's easier to then take the next step and say, okay, I'm going to put on these leggings and I'm going to go for a run, or I'm going to do this, or I am going to wear those sorts of clothes that make me look better, or whatever.
Yeah, and it's okay to recognize that. It's okay to just take the feeling, go, oh, that's okay. I'm just going to move that to one side and carry on regardless. And then you do that 3 or 4 times. It's just like trying new food, and suddenly it doesn't happen again. And you just keep moving forward and keep developing. I get it in the gym all the time with clients, especially clients who are quite new to the gym environment. And I try and focus a lot of what I do to people who want to make a change, who want to get started. Hence, I'm called the gym starter. And we'll be in the gym and we're like, can we not do this here? Can we go and do it in the corner? I'm like, well, why? And they're like, well, everyone's looking at me. And I look around and I go, no, the only person in this room looking at you is me. And that's because that's my job. Like, everyone else is just focused on what they're doing. You're the only one thinking there's 10 sets of eyes on you, and there just isn't. And it's funny how regularly that keeps occurring with certain people, especially if you get them to do something new, get them to, I don't know, crawl along the floor or something like that. Or even if people are looking at them, it's like, well, they're probably jealous, or they're probably thinking, I'd love to do that next time I'm in the gym. Or, look, she's having such great fun. But we always put, the second someone looks at us, we put a negative spin on it. It's never for positive reasons that someone's looking at us. It's always for those bad reasons. And that's something that really needs conquering.
You reminded me of something which you'll be familiar with, because you say you went to drama school? Yes,
I did. Yeah.
There's this. Do you remember that little technique where you'd sit opposite somebody, and
the Meisner technique?
Yeah, and they would say something about you.
Yep. You
have a grey hair on your chin.
Yep. It has to be non-judgmental. Yep.
And you begin to learn. Okay. I'm not judging this person, they're not judging me. It's okay to be the centre of attention. And it learns, or teaches you rather, that it's then okay to stand on stage in front of a load of people and be something, because it doesn't matter that all eyes are on you. It doesn't matter if somebody's looking at you and scrutinising you. It doesn't matter. Yeah. But that takes a lot of hard work for most people. It really does.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it took a lot of hard work for us as actors. Because Sanford Meisner come up with that. It's the Meisner technique, and he came from the school of Uta Hagen and Lee Strasberg, and I can't remember where Marlon Brando trained, and it was all based on the Stanislavskian work of working with your emotions, very much so. And yeah, I remember doing that really clearly in first year with a teacher called John Biskitzer, and he just sits down and he said, right, you're not allowed to judge, you're not allowed to tell anyone how you feel about them, what you think about them, anything like that. Just look at each other and state facts. That's all you got to do, state facts. And you do. You're like people say to me, you got a big ear. And it's like, oh yeah, I do. Yeah, no, I know I do. And it's funny, isn't it? Because everyone says to me, I have quite high self-esteem. And I wonder if I'm just naturally given it, which I'm sure there's a part of that. But I wonder if all of those exercises at drama school and stuff, just, you can't help but not. Sometimes you walk into an audition room and there's just a camera, there's 10 people looking at you and it's just you, and you've got to do what you do. You have to go in there and you just have to accept the fact that what will be. Whether it works or not, I don't care. I walk away and I'm just going to carry on my life.
I think the acting world seems to be split into 2 camps. There's the very confident people who they know they can learn anything, they can become anybody that they need to be on stage or in front of a camera or whatever. And then there's the other half, which are actually painfully shy. And they suffer with terrible stage fright. You think, how?
Yeah.
This is your job. Your job is to go out there and be somebody different. And they go, well, yeah, I've been practicing being somebody that I didn't want to be all my life. And, I'm really painfully shy. And I think there should be a middle ground, really, that says, okay, there's a time and a place for overconfidence, but it's perfectly okay to feel nervous. It perfectly is. The first thing I teach pretty much any client is diaphragmatic breathing. Almost every client will come to me with some aspect of how their emotions have an effect upon their body, whether it's on their heart rate spiking, or whether it's on a churning in their gut, or a tingly feeling, or just an out of breath feeling. And everybody needs to learn how to breathe properly. And I say the same little spiel to every client that sits in front of me when I say, okay, people say, take a deep breath. Oh, yeah, keep being told, take a deep breath, I'll be okay. Okay, well, take a deep breath. And they go,
shoulders up, yep.
And they put their shoulders up and they pull their tummy in, and their lungs get smaller and smaller and hold less air and therefore less oxygen. And it's so simple that if they can just change the way that they breathe a little bit, it's going to make it easier for them to control their heart rate. Whether that's because that's the same with exercise, of course.
Yeah.
If you're going to go for a run, you need to learn how to breathe, because you need to get as much oxygen into you, and especially for weights as well. Any sort of exercise, if you know how to breathe,
it's going to be easier.
You're lifting weights and they hold the breath.
I mean, we spent years learning how to breathe at drama school because you have to be able to phrase an entire Shakespearean sentence, sometimes an entire Shakespearean stanza, learning how to breathe. We used to just spend an hour and a half a day laying on the floor, just focusing on our breath, because it helps the voice, which helps with your self-confidence, and it just helps you calm down, stay focused. And when you're nervous, when you're on the Olivier stage, or when you're in front of, 200 people and they're relying on your line to make sure it goes into the camera correctly and everything else, that you can control everything else that's going on around you, except the nerves move on. But it all stems from the breath, like the breath of life and all of that. And the world doesn't like us breathing well, does it really? Again, chairs are too small for us, or, you're always cramped up on the tube or whatever it might be. And everything's about getting on top of you as opposed to you throwing it back and getting onto your physical wall.
Yeah.
And when people lift weights, honestly, I constantly reminding people to breathe. Breathe when you do it. It'll be easier. Breathe. Breathe out when you push up. Breathe in when you come down. It's, and when they start doing that and they start focusing on that, suddenly better things happen to them. And it's that is a good one. So moving into self-esteem and confidence and stuff like that, where does that sit in all of this? How important is self-confidence to somebody's ability to, let's just say, lose weight?
Mm-hmm. Well, it is very, very important, because if they have this label on them that says, but I am fat and ugly, then they will only settle for second best. Yeah. So that they'll look at themselves and go, well, I've been like this all my life, and I don't really identify as anybody different to this. And to stand in front of a mirror and say, I am a slim and healthy person, it doesn't hit the spot, because they don't identify it as that. They don't believe that. It's just not realistic. And so what people need to start off with is to recognize that they have the capacity to change. I can be slimmer, healthier, fitter. I can be stronger. People will talk about affirmations all the time. Most personal development coaches will say, if you can see it, you can be it. Yeah. Just tell yourself that you can do it, and you can do it.
Yeah. Visualization. I mean, I do a bit of visualization.
Yeah. But in reality, we need to be realistic. You can't give yourself an affirmation and have those visualization images of the end result without the knowledge of the steps in between that take you to it. And in fact, there is some research that shows that only having that end result in your mind actually stops you from achieving your goal. You're less likely to pass an exam if you spend a bit of time imagining passing it. You're less likely to exercise if you imagine that you've exercised and you've become slimmer. When it comes to visualization and getting a head around stuff, it's the process that we need to think about. It's the actual exercise itself that we need to think about. We imagine going out for a run, and then it's more likely that we will go out for a run because we've primed ourselves for it. We'll feel a bit disappointed if we don't, because a part of our brain was expecting us to. But if we imagine only the end result, being slim, being strong, or whatever it is, there's a bit of our brain that thinks we've already done it. So we then don't do it. Rather unethically, there was an experiment with some college graduates or college students in the States, and this university split them into groups, had some of them imagine passing certain exams and imagining getting this job that they wanted and imagining that salary. And the people in that group put in less work in their exams and got lower grades and then had lower starting salaries for their first jobs. Whereas those that were told to imagine doing your homework, imagine studying, they were imagining that, they put more work in.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're primed themselves for. They got better grades and a higher starting salary on their first job. And you look at the statistics and you go, oh God, what have we just done to these kids? Half of them, we've just screwed the first decade of their career up. Whoops.
All in the name of science.
Yeah. And then they've not done it again.
No, I bet they haven't. I can only imagine why. No, you're right about the visualization. On a first session with a client, I'll get them on the leg press machine. And I'll be like, so how much do you reckon you could lift? Like, I weigh 80 kilos, and they'll look at me and go, bloody hell, like, I'm a 6'4" giant. And they'll be like, they'll think I'm not going to be able to lift 80 kilos. And so I go, okay, 80 kilos, let's do it. And I'll do 12, easy. And we're like, why don't we do 100? They're like, what, 100 kilos? I'm like, yeah. And then if they do it, a lot of them do it, they attempt to do it and they don't manage it. And then I'll be like, right, close your eyes, relax, breathe. And I want you to just imagine the second you push your feet into that plate, the seat going back. Just think about it. Just focus on that. Focus on that. Focus on that. And it moves. Now, obviously, for them, they're in that moment. The end result is 100, but it's not. I couldn't put them up to 200, for instance, and go, do it. Just visualize it. You can do 200. Of course you can. That would be irresponsible. And there's no way they'd achieve it. And then they'd walk away feeling like a failure, which is the last thing I want on a first session.
But isn't it interesting when you're spotting somebody and you've hardly got to touch the bar for them.
Yeah,
but it feels to them, there's some extra help here. You're hardly touching it.
I know, literally
and then you push.
You take the weight of what, maybe 2 pounds, if that. And they're like, oh, and then they come off and they go, that was all you. I'm like, no, it wasn't. It really wasn't. It's like, is there any value in? You might know the answer to this because I've always wondered. When I was a child, we used to play this game. We used to get 6 people around a body. We used to put 2 fingers under them. And we used to I think it was called light as a feather or something like that. And we used to all say light as a feather, light as a feather, light as a feather, light as a feather. And the person laying down used to have to think it. And suddenly, before you knew it, you was lifting them up.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's a little bit of all sorts. But first of all those people having because there's so many, then that weight is spread apart a little bit. So it is easier to lift because you're sharing the load.
But even though when you try to do it without saying light as a feather, you can't lift them.
The thing is, it's the other person, how they hold their body.
Right.
Because you can force yourself into the ground. You can be a dead weight. You can tighten up your muscles and you can make yourself feel heavier. So that it makes it difficult for somebody to lift you up. We can do that. My son, who's 13, he'll do that all the time. Well, come on, let's see if you can lift me up. And he's like, I like that.
Or get into your room, and he just won't.
So we can make ourselves easier to lift.
Right.
It's not making us any lighter, or it's not making us any heavier when we stiffen ourselves up. But we can be that dead weight that makes us heavier. So we can also be the opposite. We can imagine ourselves as light as a feather. And we'll become a little bit more loose, a little bit more limp. And it is easier to lift us up.
Right.
And it is kind of mind over matter, I guess.
But it can't be. Because if you was to apply that to lifting a barbell, it probably wouldn't happen though.
No, not so much. But what we do know is that we're capable of a lot more than we think when it comes to physical strength. This has been done a few times, these little experiments where you get a group of people to do no exercise for a week. And this is people who wouldn't generally do a great deal of exercise anyway, and they test their weights on this flexor machine. And then you go, okay, take yourself away for a week. Here's an MP3 to listen to every day. You listen to this half an hour MP3 of somebody talking through the motions of exercise, imagining using their body, imagining using that machine. And then when they go back to it a week later and they use the machine again, they can push a lot more.
Right.
When somebody's done no visualization, their weight, their ability, their strength is exactly the same as it was the previous week. When people have done a bit of real exercise throughout the week, it does go up a little bit more than the visualization people, but not by much. The visualization characters, they've got no limit to what they can imagine. So we can push ourselves a little bit further because, well, I've imagined I'm lifting 10 tons, I can do anything. So although they can't really do it, they're more likely to push themselves that little bit further because there's a part of their brain that thinks that they can. And it's a time-honoured story. But of course, Roger Bannister, who ran the 4-minute mile.
1954.
Yeah.
When my dad was born. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Now, people have been desperate to try and break that barrier for a long time. The Second World War got in the way, and athletics sort of had a bit of a pause for a while. But still, they couldn't break that barrier. As soon as he did, so could everybody else.
Everyone else could, yeah. It's like the Crosby flop.
And it's quite normal nowadays for somebody, even in amateur athletics, to be able to push themselves to that degree. Yet Roger Bannister, when he collapsed at the finish line, he went colourblind.
Yeah.
He pushed his body so hard that he went colourblind. That wasn't that long ago. It really was 60 years. What the heck?
It's not, is it? Yeah. It's funny, but then now, I mean, I always say about the 100-meter sprint, there's got to be a point when we can't run it any quicker. There must be, because
the
legs can't. But
travel faster than the speed of light.
Well, yeah, but when your legs can't travel that quickly, you can't get a body over that. But when are we going to discover what that point is?
I don't know. Because every time we think, surely this is as fast as somebody can go over 100 meters, somebody will go, hold my drink.
Yeah.
And they'll push themselves that tiny fraction of a bit further. And that's not about their footwear or the clothes that they wear. It has an impact, of course, but no, it's their leg strength. It really is. Yeah. It's them being able to push themselves.
And their belief that they can do it.
Yeah, well, look at Usain Bolt. And yeah, he's got such long legs, but he could be a bit cocky. I mean, I remember once him running, and he's looking over his shoulder as if to go, wonder how everybody else is doing.
He eases off, doesn't he, at 200 sometimes. He just takes his foot off the gas and away he goes. Yeah. And then that's what makes him such a great champion as well.
Yeah.
So we've been going for nearly an hour now, so I don't want to take up any more of your time, Richard. But I just wanted to ask, can we just do a quick fire? What would you say the top 5 things would be to help build self-esteem?
Oh, that's interesting. First of all, I think it's acceptance. Accepting of yourself. That actually, if this is where you are right now, that's okay. If there are things that you can't do that you want to do, that's okay. You accept yourself the way that you are right now. Then you can move on to accepting that you've got the capacity to change. That if there's something that you want to improve upon, that you can. And then you're going to be able to. You feel okay with being the centre of attention when you go out for a run or being in the gym and nobody's looking at you, nobody's staring at you. What you might think of as the core foundations to self-esteem is really the way that we think about ourselves. So if you can think highly of yourself, not in a cocky way, we don't need to think of ourselves as being somebody special or unique in this precious world, but we can recognise that we are deserving of health. We're deserving of happiness. And if there's something in our life that isn't making us happy, there's something that's maybe in some way toxic, then we distance ourselves from it. And that could be a person. That could even be a job if needs be. But with all that, there is a need for not just acceptance of ourselves and the way we are, but the acceptance of everybody else as well. If we can see that often things are a reflection on other people, not on a reflection of us. When somebody cuts us up, it's not because they think that we're a bad driver or slow. When somebody overtakes us, it's because they want to get somewhere quickly. And yet it's so easy to think, who do you think you are? Yeah. Overtaking me? I'm not driving slowly. I'm not driving slowly. So we shouldn't judge ourselves. And I think that's the next thing. The next part is judgment of ourselves, self-judgment. To get rid of that inner voice, that inner critic. We all have it. We all have that voice in our head that says, no, you can't do that. That's not you. That's not what you used to. That's for other people. That's for the more successful, healthier types. That's not you. That's normal to have that voice. And if we can listen to it and go, oh, okay, that's just the inner critic. That's all that is.
Yeah.
And we move on and do it anyway. We don't allow that inner critic to hold us back. Then we are going to be able to achieve what we want to achieve. Strangely, there is an association, a strong correlation with materialism and self-esteem.
Right.
Keeping up with the Joneses. If we think that we're supposed to have this sort of phone, this sort of car, this sort of holiday, then actually that can lower our self-esteem. If we can accept that I'm okay as is. Something I put on social media today, that an ordinary life is an okay life. We don't have to have a life full of meaning and excitement. It's okay to go on holiday to your local seaside town. You don't have to go to the other side of the world to come back and go, guess where I've been on holiday. You can have a holiday almost anywhere. I live in the Midlands, so I've always got the coast is 200 miles everywhere.
Yeah.
And yet, because of that, I know of people who live around here that they'll go on holiday a couple of miles away. They'll go to the local lake and they'll go camping for a week.
We used to go 20 minutes down the road to Brentwood, and just have a little trailer park. I set up the tent and away you go. Nice little weekend in Brentwood, and it's just nice to get into a different environment. It doesn't matter where you go.
If we can see that an ordinary life is still a meaningful life, then we can enjoy it and we can be happy being who we are.
I think that's a good note to finish on. An ordinary life is a good one. Thank you so much, Richard. I feel like I've learned so much. I feel like I'm just going to come back to this and just keep listening to it because there's so much gold in there. Before we say goodbye, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me. My main website is, I store all the links to everywhere, is richardnicholls.net. And that will lead you to wherever I poke you with the diverts. At the minute, that goes to the motivateyourself.co.uk website where my podcasts are found. You can find me on iTunes. You can put Richard Nicholls into Facebook or Twitter. Instagram as well. I use Instagram. I'm down with the kids now.
Good for you. I don't think I'll follow you on Instagram. I need to do that. I definitely follow you on Twitter, but I don't really spend much time on Twitter because I try and avoid all the bad news that's on there. And tell us about your book, 15 Minutes to Happiness.
Yeah, it came out at the beginning of the year. It's called 15 Minutes to Happiness. You can see that on the website, 15minutes-to-happiness.com. And it is a spin-off from my podcast, really, because they were always around 15 minutes long. So the book is set up so that there are exercises in there that take 15 minutes, things you can do that lead you to be a happier you.
And it's phenomenal. I've listened to it on Audible. The second it was out, I chopped in a book and was like, I'm getting that straight away. Listened to it immediately. It's a really good book. It just gets you thinking about all kinds of different things. It makes you realize that you're not in such a bad place, or there's always work to be done. And it's just nice having that, knowing that there's a process you can undergo to help you along with stuff. And it's if you get it on Audible, it's narrated by Richard. So his wonderful Midlands voice can take you through it. And it's really worth listening to or buying. You can get it at Waterstones or anywhere, can't you?
Yeah, it's in Waterstones, W.H. Smith's, Amazon, of course. You can get it anywhere.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Richard, for coming on and taking an hour out of your busy schedule for me.
Pleasure.
I really, really have appreciated it. And it's been such a lovely podcast. Good luck with the rest of the book sales. Will there be a 20 Minutes to Happiness as a sequel?
I've not thought about that. The publishers keep saying to me, "What would you like to do next? If you were going to do something next, what would it be?" Right, I'll get back to you on that one.
Half
I don't know.
hour to happiness. I'm going to go copyright that, just so you know.
Well, there was something in The Guardian about me a couple of weeks ago.
What was there?
Where a journalist said, this guy's offering me 15 minutes to happiness, but I've got, hey, this book's offering me to be a millionaire in 10. So, I don't know which one to do, 10 minutes to a millionaire or 15 minutes to happiness. But as it turns out, he chose my book. He said that was the
Good
best.
for him. I'll look that article up and I'll send the guy a little message and say good choice.
It's a good man. Normally, it was a journalist who's normally quite funny and sarcastic about personal development, but he was really quite very, very positive about mine. I was quietly relieved.
Surely that tells you everything you need to know about the book, though, and about happiness. In that it's more believable and it's an easier buy-in for someone who, you can achieve elements of being a happier person within 15 minutes. That is feasible. You work on these particular things you put in your book, you can get there.
Yeah.
Can you become a millionaire in 10 minutes? Hell no.
Oh, that's a lot of 10 minutes.
Exactly, yeah. Like a lifetime of 10-minute blocks.
It's a lot of 15 minutes to become happy.
Exactly.
But that's a hell of a lot of 10 minutes work to become a millionaire. I'm not quite sure what that book was all about. But
as you said, if you can focus on the process, who knows?
Yeah.
You might all get there one day.
Do you know the ultramarathon runner Stu Mittleman?
I don't know.
Is this character that won this 1,000-mile race? Took him a week.
I'm struggling to do 10 at the moment, let alone that.
Yeah, and at the end of it, because he won, this journalist grabbed him and said, Stuart, how did you prepare to run 1,000 miles? And he said,
I've heard this, yeah.
I didn't. He said, I couldn't imagine running 1,000 miles. I just ran 1 mile. I just did it 1,000 times.
Yeah. No, that is definitely something I need to remember over the next 12 weeks. So once again, thanks for coming on. Definitely buy his book, everyone. Go do it. It's definitely worth doing. Cool. And I'll end that there.